Welcome to the Earth Your Wild podcast, brought to you by Reusabox, providing a better way to buy cardboard boxes. We're your hosts, Jack and Ellie.
This is the podcast where we talk to industry experts and change makers to try to answer the question, how do we make our businesses better for people and the planet? Today we're joined by Jade Wakes, founder of Melody. Melody is the menstrual journaling app that empowers people to tune into the natural rhythm of their cycle and live in harmony with their hormones. In today's episode, we talk about hormonal health, why it's still so misunderstood, and how better understanding can lead to healthier people and better workplaces. Welcome to the podcast, Jade. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. Before we go any further, I wondered if you could maybe start by explaining in simple terms what a menstrual cycle actually is and why it affects people who menstruate so differently across the month.
Yeah, it's a great question. So your menstrual cycle is essentially made up of two phases, the follicular phase and your luteal phase. So the first half of your cycle is when your hormones are rising, your estrogen is rising. This typically gives rise to high energy, high mood, feelings of confidence, natural wanting to socialize, etc. The midpoint in your cycle then, when estrogen is at its highest, is when, in kind of evolutionary terms, you are looking for a mate. And if you don't find a mate, then progesterone takes over, and then in the luteal phase, progesterone rises and then also declines toward the end of your cycle, which is what gives rise to the kind of PMS symptoms that many of us experience. So lower mood, lower energy levels, less of a propensity to want to socialize, etc. And then once your hormones are at their lowest, that's what leads to, so the withdrawal of your hormones essentially leads to your period, and that's why you bleed. And I think one of the things we've been led to believe is that our menstrual cycle is just about fertility, just about that estrogen and progesterone hormones. It took me till age 33 to really understand that my menstrual cycle was more than just a period, more than just about having babies. Babies were not even on my radar until about 32. And up until then, I was like, why am I struggling with my mental health? So a lot of the reason behind me creating Melody was because I really struggled with my mental health, and it took having a child and my hormones crashing to such a low level that I struggled with postpartum mental health issues or challenges, and me wanting to really figure out why aren't we taught about this? Why is it taking me having a child when I didn't think I would, to learn about this basic female biology? And I know that now we're like recognizing perimenopause, hence HRT, hormone replacement therapy. We're recognizing that the reduction in estrogen, which is what happens at perimenopause, and we're recognizing postpartum challenges, but we're not recognizing the monthly cycle and how that impacts us in work and life on a monthly basis.
Everybody's different, aren't they? And obviously there are people who suffer from conditions such as like endometriosis, and I guess that will make it 10 times worse. Is that right?
100%. So the conditions like PMDD, significant premenstrual tension, endometriosis, PCOS, which are all hormone-related conditions that have been on the rise over the last few decades, maybe longer. But we are like, I want to say that we're peaking, and that we're going to with this hormone education and people becoming more aware of how their hormones do impact every other system in the body. I want to say that we've hit the peak and then we're going to see the decline. I mean, that is very optimistic. But yeah, if you have underlying conditions like endometriosis, PMDD, PCOS, you are going to experience the hormone shifts. It's going to have a greater impact on you physically and mentally in your work life, your home life, every area of your life. And this is where the education around how our hormones impact our physical and mental health is so important, but it's still not talked about in schools. We educate, I think the education's got better. Like my daughter's 4, so she's not quite there yet. She's not even in school yet. But I've heard from friends that do have children at that age, that the education's got better, but we're still not looking at the whole cycle. It's still fairly reductive, and we're looking at, well, these are the hormones that create your menstrual cycle from a fertility perspective, from a making sure that you don't get pregnant, how to prevent a pregnancy perspective. We're still not delving into the nuances of how our hormones impact our physical, mental health, our mood, our energy levels, our motivation, our confidence on a day-to-day basis. And everyone is different. Everyone is unique. If you do have underlying conditions that you're living with, whether that's PMDD, endometriosis, mental health conditions, they are going to impact you. And if you don't know how your hormones impact you, they are going to create challenges in your life. And this is where I started charting my cycle, and I started with pen and paper. 3 years later, 2.5, 3 years later, I was like, why isn't there an app that's more holistic? Why is it taking me 1 till 33 to know that, or to understand that charting my cycle is really important for my mental and physical health? And why is it taking me this long to understand how I can support my hormones naturally? We don't have to medicate, and we don't have to suffer with the pain. Our periods should not be painful. They shouldn't be painful. And it blew my mind when I read that. So I read Laura Brydon's book, I read Maisie Hill's Period Power. It blew my mind that Laura Brydon was like, your period shouldn't be painful. Like, I had been medicating my period up until the age of 32, thinking that this is just a normal part of being a woman or someone with a cycle. And it just blew my mind that I could menstruate without it being painful. I obviously got more into it, reading about it, charting my cycle, seeing like how my mood fluctuates. I basically have a rage day just after the transition from ovulation, my inner summer. I have a rage day just between ovulation, my inner summer, and my inner autumn, my luteal phase. It's when my estrogen levels are declining significantly, and progesterone, which is your kind of calming hormone, hasn't picked up yet. Like, that's also still pretty low. And that transition for me, I literally coined it as my rage day because I just really struggle. But having the awareness of that has just been everything, because I can prepare for it, I can manage it. And it's through charting my cycle that's really helped. And I want everyone to have that. I want my daughter to have that knowledge. I want my friends, my family, my colleagues, like everyone to have that awareness and that knowledge that they can support and manage their menstrual cycle in life and work, because it just makes for that self-awareness, just makes for a life that is just easier. Like, you can live with more ease rather than constantly fighting your own body.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying things now that I didn't even know, actually. Why is it that our periods shouldn't be painful? Because I thought they were always painful.
The essentials, like your period is releasing the lining of your womb. So there are, at a biological level, so because your hormones are at their lowest, and that's what leads to the shedding of the uterine lining, your period. But the thing that causes the contractions and release the uterine lining are the things that, if you have too many of them, too much of it, then it can lead to, I can't believe I'm going to say this on a podcast, but I think everyone should know, period poos. So sometimes you get, and this is one that I know, I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast. Feel free to edit it out if you wish. But it literally leads to, if you have too many of them, it can lead to that excruciating pain you get during menstruation when you're passing a number 2.
Right.
But it's that kind of excess. Yeah, we're going there. We're going there. It's that excess of this hormone, which I cannot remember the name of. It's the thing that if you have too much of it, it can cause that pain. But what I found, getting actually back to the question, what I found was that when I made lifestyle adjustments, so really kind of targeted movement, nutrition for me has been a big thing. Like, I am not perfect, but small tweaks to my nutrition and stress management, also sleep hygiene, the 4 pillars of support, the lifestyle adjustments, has just transformed my experience of menstruation to the fact that I very rarely take painkillers now for it. I used to have to take paracetamol, ibuprofen, like back to back. And without that, I would be in debilitating pain. Like I've been through labor. I know what that feels like. I felt the whole of my labor, but I felt like the pain of contractions, and it was on par with like the latent part of labor before I made like significant lifestyle changes. And up until that point, I was like, oh, I'm just going to have to medicate for the rest of my life. Like my mother had surgery for her endometriosis. They don't really know whether it is hereditary, but it can, there's kind of questions around it could be hereditary, which, I can understand, like you're passing on your genes. But I've learned to manage and eradicate my painful periods through changes to my lifestyle. And I want others to know that there are options before exploring surgery. I would encourage people to explore the more holistic lifestyle adjustments first.
Yeah, I think it's just insane, like the lack of awareness. And I'm saying this and I'm talking to you now, and I've done some research on this, but like, even so, I don't know that much about my menstrual cycle at all. I remember, so I was telling Jack this before the podcast. So I remember having this, they when I was 10, they gave us like the period talk at school. I can't remember that much from then, but I think it was just literally like, the kind of biology lesson about it and some free sanitary towels probably. But I don't know if it's still like this, but they took all of the boys out of the lesson and it was just the girls. And then now we're kind of like, well, this is terrible, isn't it? Women are going through all this horrible stuff, and Jack's looking really confused right now. And we went to the same school.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, we consciously took boys and men out of the conversation, and now we're like, why aren't you helping us in the workplace? Why is this just a woman, the old women's problems, which is ridiculous.
And I think, yeah, you're so right that we need to bring men into the conversation, and it can strengthen relationships. Like my partner is new to this, but he has been brought along on this journey. Like we have those open conversations and it deepens our connection and our relationship. Honestly, like being able to, trying to navigate 4-year-old and house moves and starting a business is stressful enough. But having him on board and start those conversations in his workplace as well, because he's like, hey, my other half is creating this app, and he's, talking about it and spreading the awareness that way. But just from a kind of home work life situation, just being able to be honest, like we're approaching my rage day, and we found ways to navigate that. Or during menstruation, when I do feel that call to rest and retreat, and especially with a 4-year-old, she's just turned 4 as well, so she's pretty like full on. And we don't have family nearby to help with childcare, so as much as she's in preschool, like, so she, him being able to just say, right, I respect your need for rest and retreat. I'm going to take her out for, a daddy daughter day and give me the space that I need to bleed.
Yeah, it's mad. Like I talk to my partner, and I always think it's mad how like he wakes up every day, he's a morning person, and he's like, right, ready to start the day and everything. And whereas I'm just like exhausted all the time. And then at the end of the day, he's like, oh yeah, I've got to go to bed, it's really tired. And I'm like, your hormonal cycle is 24 hours long. Like you can just go to bed and wake up refreshed, and you're the same every single day. And I hate him for that.
Yeah,
Because it's not fair. I haven't even tracked my menstrual cycle like that. So I think sometimes I just assume I'm in a bad, people just assume I'm in a bad mood probably. And yeah, I had a baby in 2024, and yeah, I did lose my mind a little bit when I came back to work. So Jack's like, yes, you did.
Well,
she was insane.
Well, the thing I was thinking,
It's so hard doing that and then trying to carry on. We're expected just to slot back into the workplace, aren't we?
Be the same person that you were, because motherhood is a massive change in and of itself. to come back to the workplace and be exactly the same person when
Yeah.
your whole identity has shifted in an instant, or a
Mm.
42-hour labor, whichever,
Yeah.
but it has completely shifted in an instant. And your body is still, and especially if you breastfed, your hormones are still.
Yeah. Your brain doesn't work the same, does it? For quite a long time, I realized.
I noticed earlier you were saying when you came back off maternity, someone in the office was like, "Did you have a nice break?"
Yeah. Funny.
That's the
Wild.
thing I learned just today, or just like this week, like looking into this, was there's this knowledge gap is insane. And like we're an employer, like I'm an employer, and we employ people who menstruate, and I've never learned about it or thought about it. Never, I don't remember being taught about it at school. I think it was more you just overhear stuff.
And it has such a big impact. Like, if we could, as employers, give people the leave that they need when they are at their lowest, the rest that they need, paid menstruation leave, I think it would help us be more productive as a society. Our well-being, our productivity would soar, because at the moment, if you suffer with really severe period pain and you're then just going into work just to be present, like literally presenteeism at its worst, sat there in severe pain because you haven't, understood what's going on, and you're pushing through, you're trying to be the same person every day and you're just not, then it's just such a big cost to not just our well-being, our happiness, but at a financial level, like there's stats
Mm.
around it that it's like costing employers like 6 billion, and that's a massive economic output that we're just like a missed kind of opportunity. Opportunity is probably the wrong word, but
What's an
Yeah.
opportunity cost, isn't it? I mean, with that in mind, what do you think people most get wrong about about menstrual and hormonal health?
a few things. One, the very kind of reductive, it's all about fertility, that's the only thing our menstrual cycle is about, but actually our hormones impact every other system in our body, our mood, our motivation, our productivity, our energy levels. And we need to rest. Like, we have to rest as women with menstrual cycles. We have to rest during menstruation, otherwise it impacts the rest of our cycle. If we don't get significant and the required rest during menstruation, our internal spring and summer, the rest of our cycle is just not as it should be or as it could be. We suffer the consequences.
Is it true that women need more sleep than men anyway?
Actually, that's a really good question, and I'm not sure the answer to that one.
I thought that it was from like just from like hormonal reasons, but I don't know the actual reason.
So I know that the amount of rest and sleep that you need throughout your cycle fluctuates. So during menstruation, you're in a winter, you need more rest. Like, your body is literally trying to do a major reset,
Mm.
ready for the
Mm.
next fertility cycle. From a evolutionary perspective, from a biological perspective, that is what our bodies
Mm.
are doing. There is more to it than fertility.
Yeah, I feel like I've always kind of just viewed it as a bit of an inconvenience, really, whereas I guess we need to kind of lean into it a bit more, and I need to learn a bit more.
Honestly, one of the most like powerful things that you can do. So your intuition. So I'm going to go slightly woo woo here. Stay with me. During menstruation, that's when your intuition is like at its highest. So
Mm.
in terms of like journaling practices and really listening to what your gut is telling you, like messages that you get during your menstruation are so powerful. Any kind of anxiety or resistance to things during this can be really powerful in helping you to figure out what's not working in your life. It does get a little bit woo woo, but I say just like try it, like
Mm.
journal, chart your cycle and journal throughout your cycle for at least 3 cycles to identify your patterns, to kind of see what's coming up for you. There is this like practice called the big bleed. I've not actually done it. It's keeps like is on my list to do. But I do journal. I do keep a regular, obviously, charting practice and journaling practice. But the big bleed is all about taking yourself away for the duration of your period. Can you imagine, like 4 whole days for me, just away, like retreating by myself, no childcare responsibilities,
Nice.
no work? How amazing would that be in and of itself? imagine the insight I would get into myself, what my body needs, what's working for me, what's not. It's basically like a company retreat day
Yeah.
times 4.
Isn't that, I feel like that's what used to happen when we lived in tribes, because isn't that why your periods tend to sync up with like other women that you spend time around
I've
with?
heard this, yeah.
And then they used to like go and sit together in their like red tent or something like that. I don't know where I've
I had a
heard
red
this, you know.
pen.
Yeah, they would stay together during their period and like, you know, no one could bother them because that was their kind of time off, maybe. I don't know.
I love that idea. I do love like the whole kind of village concept, and like I feel like we have lost that in
Yeah.
today's society, like particularly around motherhood as well. Like I just don't have the village around
Yeah.
me. Like I'm making the village with like NCT friends and childcare providers and stuff, but we just don't have that village in the same way. So whether it comes to, all bleeding together in our red tent and really supporting each other through the whole cycle, or in today's society, more like the kind of motherhood village. Yeah, I feel like we have kind of lost that. And I'd love to get to a point where we kind of bring that back and have more women's groups. So I don't know if you've been to a women's group where women do get together, not to bleed necessarily, but to connect and talk about menstrual challenges and what it means to be a woman or a person with a hormone cycle.
So I got some stats from your website. Over 90% of people with cycles experience premenstrual symptoms. Around 1 in 5 report missing work due to symptoms, which is crazy. Period inequity costs employers 3.25 billion annually in the UK. Why do you think this isn't being addressed, and what can employers do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think education to begin with, like we're having this conversation now, and there's still like I've done so much research around it, but there's still things that, will be new to you that you've learned today. But yeah, I think there is a massive education knowledge gap, and it can take getting to kind of crisis point, whether that's experiencing PMDD or endometriosis, to get to the point where you start looking at what's going on. I think there needs to be more proactive preventative care, and I know that the NHS wants to get to that point, but I feel like it's a very kind of long road to get there, and employers may be worth their while to invest in education, because I think that's going to be one of the big things that's going to help people, women and people with cycles, to really get to know their hormones and how it impacts work and life. But I think there's a whole systemic change needed here. I think we're still very much in a society and in a corporate world that values presenteeism, and rather than being outcome focused, and that comes down to, leadership and planning and clear goals. And we know that it can be done. Like there are many leaders who work in that way. It's going to take a bit more time for everyone to embrace that way of working. I mean, I think now that we work more remotely, it just becomes a bit more normal. It's easier. Yeah, remote working is really helpful because it just aids that flexibility and that trust and more kind of outcome focused. But the more we can move away from presenteeism and trusting our teams and more outcome focused, the easier it's going to be for each individual person to work to their own rhythm, their own cycle.
And I mean, when we were talking earlier about this, the main thing I realized is, as an employer and our workplace, I've never thought about this at all, let alone taken the time to learn about it or been taught about it. So I was kind of thinking it's almost like we're designing workplaces as if hormones don't exist. And do you think the modern workplace is fundamentally built for men?
Yeah, in a word. Yes, I do. And I think historically it has been. You can just look at the number of women in leadership positions to see that, and look at the kind of the funding that goes to female entrepreneurs. It's still around like 2%. Um, it's increasing, and there are more pots of money, more funding coming through for female entrepreneurs and femtech. But I think fundamentally we are still living very much in a man's world. You can see things starting to change, but fundamentally we are still living in a man's world, which is built for the male hormone cycle, the 24-hour hormone window, 5 days a week, whereas women cannot show up in the same day if they have a hormone cycle, because we are not the same person every single day.
And if there's like someone listening with a business that's thinking, well, how would we consider this in the workplace? Have you got any like simple actionable advice?
First thing I would say is hire a menstrual coach to come in and give a talk, whether that's like a lunch and learn or a more kind of interactive couple of hour session. A menstrual coach, so I'm not a menstrual coach, but I know many fantastic menstrual coaches that have worked with small businesses, large multinationals, and they are delivering this in education into the workplace. So you're educating the whole team, not just the women, but the men. So they start to understand what it's like to be living in a woman's body with a hormone cycle. So yeah, I would say get your menstrual coaching from the perspective of educating, bringing in more like flexible working, more outcome focused instead of requiring your team or expecting your team to be showing up in the office or on Slack or Zoom like every single day in the same way. But I think it start with education.
What you said earlier about like there are things that you can do, because obviously we're living in this world where we do have, most people do end up working the 9 to 5, and it's just kind of the world that we're in to a certain degree, isn't it? So we still have to do work every day. So is it kind of about like managing those symptoms that we get? You talked about through like diet and stress and things like that.
Absolutely. So yeah, the 4 pillars being sleep, stress management, movement, and nutrition. If employers can find a way to support their teams with all of those 4 pillars, then that would help. But I know like, yeah, the 9 to 5, but why does it have to be that way? Like, I know for many people, if they do have a 9 to 5, like if you're working in a coffee shop, if you're working in a warehouse, or yeah, you're customer facing, but so many more people now, there is the option to work more flexibly, and especially, becoming a parent, like both
Mm.
from my other half's perspective and mine, like being able to work more flexibly around children and within my own needs, my own cycle is just so important.
Yeah, and I think once you kind of trust people, you kind of give people that opportunity, and you give them, because you have to be able to trust them, don't you?
Yeah.
Then I think so often like they're going to reward you 10 times over. So it's just to have this kind of knee-jerk reaction of presenteeism and
Mhm.
get back in the office is really archaic, isn't it?
I think so. And I think we need to move towards more of the objectives, outcome focused way of working and leading and
Mm.
trusting people, trusting the team that you've hired. Otherwise, the hormone related conditions are going to get worse. We're going to,
Mm.
like, they're debilitating now, like they're affecting work and life. And
Mm.
it's only going to get worse if we don't make a systemic change now.
Yeah, I think I read like the 9 to 5 where it came from. It came from like the industrial age. So like when we built factories,
Mm.
people they traded their time for money. So it was very
Yeah.
focused on you do 8 hours in the factory making this product on the production line.
Yeah.
We don't really live in that world anymore.
I guess
So
you didn't do that if you had children, though, did you? I guess you just didn't work. You became a housewife then, so
I guess not, yeah. But
yeah.
I do think for any business listening, I guess that good management, understanding how to get the most out of people
Mm.
and therefore build a good business is about understanding how to understand people.
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're talking about. You know, I don't think most employers understand this. I wondered if you could like dig a little bit deeper into Melody and how it works. I know you touched on it briefly earlier, but it would be really good to give any listeners like a bit more of a deep dive into like what is the product and how does it work and how do you use it?
So it's essentially a hormone journaling app, a smart hormone journaling app. It goes deeper than it's not fertility focused. So one of the things that I didn't want it to be was triggering. So if you're not on a fertility journey or you've had an unsuccessful fertility journey, sorry, I didn't want Melody to be triggering for you. And a lot of the research that we did before setting it up was around it being more holistic. And obviously my personal journey, I struggled with my mental health, and it was the charting and the journaling side of things that really helped me through. So charting my cycle, and I wanted to create a digital version of that, because there's only so much that pen and paper can give you in terms of spotting trends and understanding nuances of your triggers and things that can actually help you. So it's a digitized version of your charting and journaling app, essentially, and you can choose what you want to track and what you don't want to track, so you can make it super simple. And once you've chosen what to track, you start to notice patterns. And so we've got really nice like graphing in there, and we've just introduced an AI feature. I'm kind of reticent to say the word AI now because it's getting such a bad rep, but it can really, like, in terms of machine learning, in terms of interpreting your data and spotting patterns and then using those insights to improve your mental and physical health, machine learning is just so powerful, so much more powerful than me using pen and paper or anyone else using pen and paper. So essentially, Melody now has become a menstrual coach in and of itself. So it can, once you start tracking, it can help you predict where your rage day might be or where other challenging parts of your cycle may be, and give you those preventative, proactive prompts for lifestyle adjustments that may help you. And then you can start to track like the difference they make. And then more recently, we found users who are in perimenopause or suspect they may be in perimenopause, which is obviously a major hormone transition. They've been using it, using the reports, so the medical report that you can generate based on your data from Melody. They've taken that to conversations with their GP to talk about and say, look, I have noticed these patterns in my mood and energy levels here, or my brain fog, etc. I know it's not anything that I'm doing. I think it might be hormone related because look, I've been tracking. And then she's gone on to HRT. So this is like one specific example, but she's then gone on to HRT and can then, which is hormone replacement therapy, and she can track how that is changing and how that is supporting her cycle now, where, you know, estrogen may be dipping too low, or progesterone levels may be too low, so she's experiencing these challenging symptoms. But essentially, in a nutshell, Melody is all about getting to know what your normal looks like, what looks like normal for you in terms of your menstrual cycle, and then empowering you with that body literacy from a what looks normal for me, what do my patterns look like, but also what should a normal cycle look like? Is it normal for me to have a rage day? What could possibly be causing that? So it's really educating people about their hormones and how they could potentially impact their mood, their energy levels, etc.
And so we noticed you've taken quite a strong stance on data privacy with Melody.
Yeah.
Just wondered if you could explain what you guys do differently, and why this was a non-negotiable for you when you were building the app.
Being a marketer, I know the power of data. So my background's in marketing. I have 15 plus, how old am I now? Oh my gosh, 15 plus years experience in marketing. And I used to work predominantly in the ad space. So using customer data, emails, etc., to profile customers and then show them advertising. I can't believe I've just admitted that, but there we go. You can use that in like a really negative way, or you could, like back in the day, you could use that in a really negative way. And you hear of people like Cambridge Analytica scandals, and then with like the overturning of Wade v. Roe, I think it just became more and more. Maybe I was quite a naive as a marketer when I thought everyone would be using it to sell, you know, nice products that can actually truly help people. But when these things happened, I thought, oh my gosh, the power, like the data, your menstrual data is so powerful. And I never even in a million years would have expected it to be used against someone, like in abortion cases and things like that. And I think it really opened my eyes that I want to help people, and I don't want there to be even any chance of the data that they are recording in Melody to be used against them. Like, it just goes against the fundamental principles of what I'm trying to do with Melody, which is to empower women and people with cycles with the knowledge for body literacy, not for it to ever be used against them. I want them to be able to use their data in a way that helps them to live with more ease and less stress, less resistance. And so it just goes against everything that I stand for. So designing the app in that way supports the belief that the data should always be theirs. The user should control whether it's held like on their device or in the cloud, or when they want it deleted, it's, deleted. There are even experiences today that I've had with other big apps out there, and it's a nightmare to try and delete your data. Like even with GDPR and the kind of parts of that we've taken into UK law, it's so challenging to get your data deleted. But I wanted for Melody it to be, if you delete your data, that's it. You can literally erase your existence from the app. But also we have anonymous mode. So right now, if you're signing up with Apple, you can choose not to share your email address. You're literally anonymous, which is great from a usability perspective and a user like data privacy security. It's an absolute headache from my little marketing brain that's like, okay, now we can't like remarket them with emails unless they've, consented down another route. There's a lot of things that from a marketing perspective, I'm like, oh, darn, it's more challenging. But at least I can be sure now that, you can use the app and choose to be anonymous, and you can literally use the data as you need without the risk of it being used against you. So obviously all of our data is encrypted, in transit, in storage, etc., etc., etc. All the kind of basics that you'd expect for app security, data security, data privacy. I can't do it any other way. Like for people to use it, I think the growing concern around consumers now is my data secure? Can I be anonymous? And we are introducing an anonymous feature later. So obviously right now you can sign up with your Apple ID and choose not to share your email address, at which point we have no idea who you are, which is great from a user perspective. But later in the year, we will be introducing kind of that for everyone else.
I wanted to ask, what has it been like founding a femtech startup as a woman, especially in a sector where many products and services still neglect hormonal health beyond fertility?
Been a challenge. So funding for female founders in general is something like 2%. Like it's just measly. And the femtech space has still been seen as like a kind of up and coming niche area. And I think that's changing. Certainly the conversations that I've been seeing, like I've been privy to, you kind of, the space, because I'm in that space, you kind of see it as, although there's obviously that could just be an echo chamber, but you kind of see it, you're seeing it get talked about more and more in like mainstream media. So you hope that it's becoming less of a niche topic and more people are becoming aware of the need for femtech solutions. But yeah, it's been a challenge. Like there's not much funding for female entrepreneurs or in femtech. I certainly went for some of the big like grants, like the Innovate UK grants. So many, like such limited pots of funding, and then the funding that is available is just highly competitive. And I wasn't fortunate to get that funding, and so I decided to bootstrap. But fortunately, I met my amazing co-founder Emily at a Flutter meetup in Bristol, and yeah, we've been on this journey together for over a year now, which has been amazing. I felt like the universe had spoken and was just like, you're meant to bootstrap. Like I've bootstrapped, my marketing business and other companies before, and yeah, it feels like the right path for me.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice that would help you on this journey, what would that be?
When you say younger self, how old are we talking?
It's up to you.
Do you know, it's really peculiar because I was just thinking about this. I was journaling earlier and I was like, what do I wish for my younger self? But I was thinking about it from the perspective of, I wish I'd charted my cycle earlier in my life. So I'm not sure whether this is totally answering the question, but I wish I had known about menstrual charting from menarche. I mean, I was 10 when I entered menarche, which is your first period. I wish that I'd had awareness of my cycle and the nuances of it and exactly what my hormones could impact, which is everything, from that young age. I wish I'd started charting my cycles from a very young age. It certainly would have helped me get to know myself, because it's been the most revolutionary thing for me. Like I don't say that lightly, in terms of my mental health, in terms of just really understanding myself. It's just transformed everything, my relationships, everything. And I wish that I'd got to know myself earlier through menstrual charting. So I would, older, wiser woman Jade, if she could have taken her by the hand and gone, do you know what would really help you? Menstrual charting. Like, you won't have an app for it because, this is like 1950 or whatever.
Here's an iPhone from the future.
Yeah.
You won't be able to charge it for another 10 years, but
Okay, so imagine it's 10 years from now. What does the world look like, and what difference has the Melody app made?
So we'll all be sitting in our red tents. My hope, my wish, my manifestation is that we are living and working in sync with our cycles, in menstrual cycles. So the workplace has changed so much that it's just become commonplace that we can live and work to our own schedules. So I can say to my boss or my, hang on, how old will my daughter be? No, she'll be 14. She can go into school and be like, even though she's supporting her hormones because she's done all the lifestyle adjustments things, maybe something has impacted her, because everything impacts your hormone cycle. So like a significant loss, bereavement or something, or shock, or etc. But she can go into school and say, like, I'm taking a menstrual day. And that's just seen as like, oh yeah, okay, great. And the same like in work, I can not just me, but any woman and person who has a hormonal cycle can go in and talk to their leader, their boss, and say, I'm taking a menstrual day. I need this time to rest, retreat. See you on the other side. I want it to be commonplace. Like, I want cycle syncing, living in tune with our bodies to be the norm, and not so every woman, every person with a cycle is empowered with that knowledge of menstrual cycle awareness, and they are living in tune with their own rhythm. That's what I want to see. And obviously, if Melody can help to do that, great. But, our mission at Melody is bigger than that. It's to make menstrual cycle awareness mainstream, so that when we're sat here on the podcast in 10 years' time, we're like, oh, now everyone, like every employer has changed the way that they work, just become the norm.
I loved what you said about getting a coach, like a menstrual coach, was it?
Yes.
Just to like educate people, because I think that's like the first step, isn't it? You can't change what you don't really understand. So
yeah, absolutely. And I feel like because I'm so close to this, like I've obviously been on this learning journey for like 4 years now, since discovering that menstrual cycle awareness was a thing, and menstrual charting was a thing, and there was more to my hormones and my menstrual cycle than just fertility or my period. Yeah, like educate. You don't know what you don't know. So having that menstrual coach come into the workplace for a lunch and learn, or a workshop, I think is so powerful and can really change a lot of people's lives, because after all, this isn't just impacting women, this is impacting your colleagues who are, we have male colleagues and our partners and our friends, family, etc.
Nice. And for anyone that's listening, how do they find out about you guys, about Melody app?
If you go to liveharmoniously.com, then you can find out all about Melody, download it and find out more details about our mission.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We hope it was truly
Earth your while.
For more information, visit reuserbox.co.uk/earthyourwhile.
And if you'd like to appear on the next series of Earth Your While, please email media@reuserbox.co.uk.